we are going to talk about this right against exploitation. Maybe we'll take three more lecture after this to complete the fundamental rights. So today's we are going to discuss about this right against exploitation. Okay, uh, the screen is visible to you. The PPT which I'm sharing to you.
Yes, sir.
So you know. The right against exploitation. We'll talk about that. Okay, it is one of the most important pillar for the preservation of human dignity. It is one of the most important pillar for the preservation of human dignity. Independent India has sought to emancipate uh, its people from being exploited unduly and being subjugated to environmental or domestic or any other kind of the work hazards. So there's a right against exploitation is one of the most vital or the important right for the people of India. Okay, so this right protects that the citizen of India from any sort of exploitation and any sort of hazard. So this Article 23 and 24 of the Constitution are designed to prevent एक्सप्लॉयटेशन ऑफ मेन बाय मैन कि एक ह्यूमन बीइंग जो है किसी दूसरे ह्यूमन बीइंग का एक्सप्लॉयटेशन ना करे ठीक है and these rights ensured by these two articles may be considered as complementary to the individual rights as ensured by the Article 19 and 21 of the Indian Constitution. Uh, so, this Constitution prohibits trafficking and forced labor and seeks to protect the children below the age of 14 years from the working as a braid earner. Uh, then you will find thus Article 23 and 24 of the Indian Constitution safeguard this individual as well as the women and children against exploitation of various forms. Like it is designed to abolish this human trafficking and beggary, and it also tries to abolish employment of children below the age of 14 years कि 14 साल से कम उम्र के बच्चों से काम नहीं करवाया जाएगा which that is the punishable offense and it also prohibits beggary. You know now what is beggary? Shay, you know what is beggary?
So work without payment.
Yes. Uh, this provision also prohibits beggary, which practiced in the past by the landlords, and it treats human trafficking and beggary as a crime and punishable by law. And it prohibits slave trade, prostitution, and in any other forms of servitude. So we'll talk about the scope of Article 23. Uh, the scope of Article 23 is wide enough to cover under its purview all forms of exploitation. So this is covering what? All other kinds of exploitation. Any forms of exploitation will come under the Article 23. So, for an example, if the landowner forces a landless labor to render free service, अगर कोई ऐसा पर्सन है जिसके पास लैंड नहीं है, जो लैंडलेस है, उसको फोर्स करे कि तुम हमारे यहाँ आके फ्री में काम करो, एंड इवन अगेंस्ट द नॉन पेमेंट ऑफ डेब्ट, जैसे काम करवा दिया, और if certain due is there and if he is not paying, uh, in this case also, uh, this is punishable by law. So अगर आपने काम करवाया है तो आपको पैसे देना है, you cannot force them. So this Article 23 declares that slave trade, मतलब गुलामों की खरीद बिक्री, prostitutions, and thus human trafficking are punishable offense. It also declares that nothing in this article shall be prevent the state from imposing compulsory service for public purposes. Uh, for the public purposes, they can meet certain kind of the imposition for the to provide the services. And in imposing such service, the states shall not make any discrimination on the ground only of religion, race, caste, class, or any of them. So the matter comes here: what is human trafficking? Do you know?
Yes, sir.
जैसे कहता है ना आर्टिकल 3 prohibits trafficking of human beings, forced labor. तो क्या है ये? Basically, what do you understand by human trafficking? Can you speak
Sir, the
about?
illegal selling or buying of human beings, that is human
Yes,
trafficking.
yes. जैसे आपने many a times, are you people reading newspaper?
Yes, sir.
Everyone must read the newspaper. That will be the like that. आप अक्सर न्यूज में देखते होंगे many a times कि किसी tribals को, especially Jharkhand, some of the tribal ways of Bengal, some region of Bihar, and from the UP, they used to just give them the scheme. You will get the good paid jobs this month, और वो उनको यहाँ से लाके sell कर देते हैं. And there is a whole very big human trafficking racket. जैसे हरियाणा, Punjab, Rajasthan, were having the shortage of the girl, and they are using the women as a commodity. Just the one person is buying, and after a year's few months, he is selling it to someone else, and then he is purchasing someone else. So just like a commodity. So that is the human trafficking. So in a very layman example, I will explain it to you. What is human trafficking? The meaning of human trafficking is a sort of compelling people into servitude, slavery, or prostitution, as well as forcing women, handicapped people, and children to render free services, which go against basic values of humanity. Okay, जैसे कुछ लोगों को just they will bring from here and यहाँ लाया डोमेस्टिक वर्क के लिए, और सालों से उनको काम करवा रहे हैं and not paying to them. And when they are asking for the money, beating them, or they used to just lock in the room and taking this free services from them. So this human trafficking is equivalent to the act of tricking, luring, or forcing a person in leaving their home to work for little or no pay. It is a sort of modern day slavery. This is a kind of modern day slavery. In human trafficking, people are bought, as Rahul said, uh, सोल्ड एंड ट्रेडेड, यहाँ पे लोगों की खरीद बिक्री होती है, खरीदा जाता है, बेचा जाता है और इनका ट्रेड किया जाता है, जैसे पहले गुलामों की होती थी, स्लेव्स। So when there is a human trafficking, the people who are being trafficked, they are rarely paid, इनको कुछ नहीं मिलता, and they are rarely washed, and they get no medical attention. They are often being beaten, raped, or drugged. इवन आप फॉरेन कंट्रीज में कुछ लोग जाते हैं, उनके साथ भी ऐसा होता है, यहाँ से कुछ कह के और वहाँ उनकी पासपोर्ट रख ली जाती है, सो देयर पासपोर्ट्स मे बी कॉन्फिस्केटेड एंड दे लीव विद फियर, और अब वो बिना पासपोर्ट के कहीं जा नहीं सकते हैं, एंड इट्स बिकॉज ऑफ द फियर दे आर लिविंग दैट एंड दे आर जस्ट बीटन, not paid, not given the medical attention, raped and drugged. So these are the areas like the India, Sudan, and Ukraine. और यहाँ के लोग come into the trap, and these are the areas where human trafficking occurs the most. Uh, India initiated to combat the threat of trafficking. How the India will combat? What all are the initiatives of the government of India to combat the threat of trafficking? The Article 23 prohibits any sort of human trafficking. However, there is an exception. For an example, the compulsory military conscription is not covered under this provision. So, what happens? It says no child below the age of 14 years shall be employed to work in any factory or mine or engaged in any other hazardous employment. So the child labor is considered gross violation of the spirit and the provision of the Constitution. So here the question comes: what is exactly child labor? Can you tell me what is exactly this child labor? बताइए.
Sir, you are asking for child labor.
Yes.
So, as government has mentioned, I think the children can only work after 40 years of age. And before that, if they are forced to work, that is what child labor is.
Okay. All right. Anyone else who wants to speak this child labor? Tanmay,
Sir, labor by children below 18.
below 18 or 14?
Below 14, sorry, sir. Below 14.
Okay. Anyone else? Ayan? Okay. Child labor is a sort of labor when a child is being forced to work without his or her will, बिना उसकी मर्जी का आप उससे जबरदस्ती काम करवाते हैं. You are forcing them without his or her will in a factory or in domestic sector or in any hazardous work. That is a child labor. So now the next question comes: what happens to the child? फिर बच्चों का
सर
क्या होगा? Yes,
सर कंसेंट अगर चाइल्ड का हो तो वो चाइल्ड लेबर है या नहीं?
14 years तक तो consent की भी required नहीं है. You cannot take the consent. Consent forceful भी तो हो सकता है. That's why it will come under the child labor. So what happens to the child? They suffer from social exclusion and discrimination. They are kept out of school and forced to work. Child labor thus includes the work performed by the children under the age of 14. Is it clear? Tanmay?
Yes, sir.
Long hours of work on a regular or full-time basis, which denies them the right to develop their full self. अगर वो पढ़ेगा नहीं तो उस अपने आप को वो डेवलप कैसे कर पाएगा? They are denied to their right to go to school. Children का right है to get the education and go to the school. They are denied of that right, and they are treated abusively and have no access or very poor access to education. So the next question comes: what does child labor? How does child labor harm the children? ये कैसे children को harm करता है child labor? The question comes this. So you know this Article 21A talks about the estates, that the estates shall provide free and compulsory education to all children of the age of the 6 to 14 years in such a manner as the estate may by law determine. So fundamental right to life का ये in Article 21A है, different article which talks about fundamental right है compulsory education 6 से 14 साल के बच्चों के. दिस इज द वायलेशन ऑफ द फंडामेंटल राइट अगर 14 साल से कम के बच्चों को काम कराया जाता है. इज इट क्लियर? बॉन्डेड लेबर मैंने आपको बताया है. सो ये कैसे हार्म करता है? हाउ डज चाइल्ड लेबर हार्म द चिल्ड्रन? Actually, when the families they are not being able to support the child, a child is forced to give his or her labor. और वो ऐसा कब होता है जब फैमिली पुअर हो, उनके पास खाने को नहीं हो, then उनके पास ऑप्शन ही नहीं है. The situation forced them to do the child labor. So this is because of that having this fundamental right. So not to engage them, and that's why having the midday meal is planned. So the children will get the food and clothes and the free education. So they may be forced to collect materials from the dumps, recycles them for a small amount of money. आप देखते हैं पूरों से प्लास्टिक चुनना, कुछ इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स के सामान को इकट्ठा करना, और जिससे बहुत ही नियगर अमाउंट और बाद में चल के वो नेशन के लिए एक लाइबिलिटी हो जाता है. They are being constantly exposed to harmful gases, and without proper footwear, they may cut their feet with the sharp objects. The United Nations statistic suggests that the 250 million children laborers worldwide having, and it is estimated that at least half of them work in the agricultural sector. ये जितना भी चाइल्ड लेबर है उसमें हाफ एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में engaged है. The work is physical, demanding, because the children can bend down, kneel, climb ladders. जैसे खेतों की जुताई होती है तो उसमें carry heavy loads of fruit and other things. Children who work in the agriculture sector, they are actually worst sufferer. वो सबसे ज्यादा suffer होते हैं because they suffer from the back pain. They are prone to get severe injury for using the sharp objects or the tools like rakes, horse, shovels, etc. This exposed to the dangerous tools may harm the children and even may take their life. This United Nations statistic on the trafficking on children so that United Nations estimated to 2 to 4 million people a year are being traded against their will into some form of slavery, to be domestic labor, begging, or prostitution. So, according to United Nations, most of them are children. Now, trafficking of child involves their recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, receiving children. This means adopted or abduction, sell, use of force, threat, deception, and the abuse of power or authority. So the next question comes: why has there been increase in child trafficking? तो फिर child trafficking बढ़ी क्यों रहा है? So the general increase in the demand for prostitution by children. This is the reason behind the increase in the child trafficking. So especially the girl child. The general increase in the demand for prostitution by children and the vulnerability of children living in poverty, inadequate legislations, and weakness in the implementation of the laws, and lack of the effective services and policies. So now the next question comes, who are the children being trafficked? वो कौन से बच्चे हैं जिनको traffic किया जाता है? Mainly the girl children. From the ages of 4 to 17 years, they are the most endangered sections among the children, the girl child, from the age of 4 to 17 years. Children from rural and the urban areas in search for work for survival. And the other one, the children who left home because of poverty. Children who have already been sexually abused, or the children who have run away from the places of safety. So the next, the question comes, who are traffickers? ये traffic कौन करते हैं? Parents भी engaged होते हैं, mainly mothers uh, and family members, old sex workers, because they need someone who can assist them in the coming trial. एक gang होता है पूरा, brothel owners, syndicates and agents, local and foreign nationals, जो यहाँ से Arab countries and many other regions, they are selling the girl child from here to there, mainly because of child labor and child trafficking is poverty. और ज्यादातर poverty के कारण उनको पता नहीं होता, वो अपने बच्चों को पैसे के लालच में
Sir,
बेच देते हैं. Yes,
sir, even human trafficking occurs for selling these organs also, no?
yes, that also, because वो क्या काम करते हैं कि
In
the
that
two.
case, doctors are also involved, no? That
Yes,
human
yes, that is the recent form. Recently, अभी दिल्ली का एक डॉक्टर पकड़ा गया है. Yes. The poverty is the main cause. The poor families need to keep as many family members working as possible. Therefore, they employ their children in hazardous works, and this makes it very difficult for the children to get proper education. In fact, educating a child can be a significant financial burden for the family. 191 countries agreed to recognize the right of the children to be protected from economic exploitation. So now the question comes, what are the initiative of the government of India regarding this? We have the Article 24. Okay, we have this Article 24. Uh, there are the enough legislations, national policies, legislations, better law enforcement techniques, training and capacity building mechanisms have evolved. So special anti-trafficking units have been set up, but the most significant steps taken by the government of India is the insertions of this Article 21A. This Article 21A suggests that the state shall provide free and compulsory education to all children of the age 6 to 14 years in such a manner as the state may by law determine. Uh, it is in tune with Article 45 of the DPSP, which said that the state shall endeavor to provide within a period of 10 years from the commencement of the Constitution for free and compulsory education to all children until they complete the age of 14 years. पहले ये DPSP का पार्ट था आर्टिकल 45 में कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बनने के 10 साल के बाद कि ये स्टेट की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि 14 साल के एज तक के हर एक सिटीजन को, बच्चों को फ्री एजुकेशन प्रोवाइड की जाए, जिसको कि बाद में आर्टिकल 21A में इंसर्ट कर दिया गया, which has become the fundamental right. So this provision has been inserted with a view to make people conscious of their rights, which can be channelized through proper and basic education. So these articles were designed as a means of proper socialization of children within their families. This has become the responsibility to provide the education. There are several constitutional provisions, but this is not enough. Therefore, the parliament has enacted this number of laws. So that's why you will find this Bonded Labor System Abolition Act 1976. The Bonded Labor System Abolition Act was enacted in 1976. So, this Bonded Labor System Abolition Act 1976 was enacted for the abolition of bonded labor system for the protection of economically and physical weaker section of the society. So there was a provision for vigilance committee for the execution of this law. Uh, so it was stated in the act that whoever, after the commencement of this act, compels any person to render any bonded labor shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which may be extended to 3 years, and also a fine which may be extended to 2,000. सो एक प्रोविजन बनाया गया कि इस प्रोविजन के बाद भी अगर कोई बॉन्डेड लेबर को रेंडर करता है तो वो एक पनिशेबल होगा, उसमें 3 साल तक की कारावास की भी सजा होगी, जेल की, और फाइन 2,000 रुपए का या तो. And after that, a number of legislative initiatives have been taken at both the central and the state level. So the major national legislative development include some of the following things, like the Factories Act 1948, Minimum Wages Act 1948, that the punishment I told you. So we'll talk about this Factories Act. The This Factories Act of 1958. This act prohibits the employment of children below the age of 14 years and adolescent between the 15 to 18 years, जो 15 से 18 साल के बीच में है, they can be employed in a factory only if he or she obtains a certificate from a competent medical officer. तभी वो factories में काम कर सकते हैं 15 से 18 साल. The Act also prescribes that such an adolescent can never be forced to work for more than 4.5 hours. अगर 15 से 18 साल के बच्चों से काम लिया जाता है एडोलसेंट से, तो उनको 4.5 घंटे से ज्यादा काम नहीं लिया जाएगा एक दिन. And he would not work at the night hours, और इनसे नाइट शिफ्ट में काम नहीं करवाया जाएगा. एक अगला प्रोविजन है मिनिमम वेजेज एक्ट of 1940. It prescribes minimum wages for all employees in all establishments and also provides for minimum wages to those working at home in certain sectors specified in the schedule of this act. So जो घर में भी काम कर रहे हैं या कहीं भी employed हैं, तो उनके लिए एक मिनिमम वेजेज एक्ट का प्रोविजन आया, दिस मिनिमम वेजेज एक्ट 1948. And the central and the state government can revise this minimum wages specified in the law according to that, which is to be revised according to the time as per the inflation. And some consider that this act is an effective instrument to combat child labor, so that the child is not being hired for being less cost. Uh, the next is the Mines Act of 1952. The act prohibits the employment of children below 18 years of the age in a mine. So जो माइंस है वहाँ पे 18 साल से कम के बच्चों से काम नहीं लिया जा सकता है. And this act states that the apprentices above 16 जो apprenticeship के लिए आते हैं और 16 साल से ज़्यादा के हो, may be allowed to work under the supervision of a proper guide in a mine. And next comes the child labor prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986. Uh, there's child labor prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986 in pursuance with the India's development goals and strategies, a national child labor policy was adopted in 1987, and this was adopted following this act of child labor prohibition and this regulation act of 1986. uh, it retaliates the DPSP, that is the Directive Principles of the State Policy, as enumerated in the Indian Constitution. It revolves its focus on general development programs to benefit children wherever possible and have project-based action plans in area of big concentration of child labor जहाँ पे भी बहुत ज़्यादा चाइल्ड लेबर इंगेज्ड हैं तो वहाँ पे कुछ स्पेशल प्रोजेक्ट या प्लान के तहत इनमें कुछ वहाँ पे उनको सेफगार्ड करने के लिए engaged in a wage or quasi wage employment and then comes this juvenile uh, justice care and protection of the Child Act, JJ Act, Juvenile Justice, Child Care and Protection of the Children Act of this 2000. This Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act of uh, Children Act 2000. This act was last amended in 2002 in conformity with the United Nations Convention on the Right of Child. It was designed to protect children below the age of 18 years. Section 26 of the Act deals with the exploitation of juvenile or child labor or sorry child employment and provides it in relevant part that whoever procures a juvenile or a child for the purpose of any hazardous employment and keeps him or her in bondage and withholds his earnings, not giving the pay to them, or uses such earning for his or her own purpose. Uh, it shall be punishable with the imprisonment for a term of up, which may be extended up to 3 years, and shall also be liable to fine. In some states like Karnataka and Maharashtra, these provisions have been used effectively to bring or to book many children, and many children, this labor employees, many child labor employees who are otherwise not being covered by any other law or to give relief or rehabilitation benefits to a large number of children. So the next you will find uh, the right of the children to free and compulsory education act 2009 article. uh, it is the Act of 2009. This Act provides for free and compulsory education to all children below the age of 14 years. This legislation envisages that 25% of the seats in the private schools shall be allocated for the children from the disadvantaged sections, including differently able children. You must have heard about the EWS quota in the schools, economically weaker sections. पता है आपको ये?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
No, sir.
हाँ तो you are not reading the newspaper. This is the problem behind that. Otherwise, अक्सर ये आता है एडमिशन के टाइम पे रिकॉर्डिंग। सो जो इकोनॉमिकली वीकर सेक्शंस हैं जितने भी एलिट प्राइवेट स्कूल्स हैं वहाँ पे भी सीट्स रिजर्व। So, some policies and programs regarding which I will talk about. First among all, these policies are the National Child Labor Projections for Rehabilitation of Child Workers since 1988. Okay. Uh, the Ministry of Labor and the Employment has been implementing the national policy through the establishment of this NCLP for the rehabilitation of children and the workers since 1988. The objective of such policy was to what was the main objective behind the establishment of these certain rehab this NCLPs. So the objective of such policy was to establish special schools, including vocational training centers, to promote additional income and generating opportunities for the families and raising the public awareness. A renewed commitment to fulfill constitutional mandate resulted in enlarging the ambit of NCLPs in 1994. Uh, it sought to rehabilitate the children working in hazardous occupation, in child labor, endemic districts. The strategies for the NCLPs include the establishment of special schools as well as conducting survey and this evaluation of the child labor. The most significantly, the central government made a budgetary provision for the allocation of 2.5 billion for this project during the ninth five-year plan. Around 100 NCLPs were launched across the country during this period. And one of the most important thing during 2001 and 2, at the time of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee led government, launched Sar Shiksha Abhiyan, or the Education for All program, and it designed to provide universal elementary education of satisfactory standard by 2010. आपने जरूरी सुना होगा सर्व शिक्षा अभियान के बारे में.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That came in 2001 and 2, जिसका मेन एम था कि हर किसी को जो बेसिक एलिमेंट्री एजुकेशन है वो दिया जाए 2010 तक सारे लोग के पास बेसिक एजुकेशन. So during the 11th five-year plan, the expansion of NCLP scheme was initiated. So you will find the substantial improvement in the standard and the quality of education and teachers training will suffer. So it also tries to seek amendment uh, to all laws which were designed to protect the children below the age of 14. Actually, it tried to include under the purview of the children below the age of 18 years. Uh, Apart from this, India had joined international initiatives like Thus, International Program on Elimination of Child Labor, and IPAC launched a convergence project uh, against the child labor, which covers five states. That is the Bihar, Gujarat, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, and Odisha. This project is expected to demonstrate uh, the effective convergence based on the models of elimination and prevention of child labor, including the trafficking. So these are certain institutions like VV Giri National Labor Institute and the National Institute of Rural Development and certain state level institutions which have played an important role in the areas of training and capacity building of government functionaries, factory inspectors, officers, or Panchayati Raj institutions, etc., for the abolition of child labor. So the India has signed certain treaties like International Labour Organization, Post Labour Convention, number 29, and the ILO Abolition of Forced Labour Convention, number 105, United Nations Convention on the Rights of Child, CRC. All these treaties are visible on your screen. You can look into the PPT. Uh, we have recently seen that Malala Yousafzai and Kailash Satyarthi have received just few years back, the Nobel Prize for fighting against this child labor, as well as a fight for the right of children to have proper education. Uh, the NGO led by uh, this Professor Kailash Satyarthi, Bachpan Bachao, and this. So it is not only the duty of the government. So we'll say that it is not only the duty of the government. Neither the task should be left alone with the legislative constitutional provision. It is the citizens of India, the residents of India, who must raise voice against any sort of exploitation of men by men, and especially against the child labor. So, the discussion over the right against exploitation is over.